Why most business owners don't really know their numbers, but think they do. There's a line that gets repeated in every business networking event, every podcast interview, and every coaching call. I know my numbers. It's usually said with pride, as if it's proof of leadership, confidence, and control. But here's the quiet truth few admit. Most business owners don't really know their numbers. They know what their revenue was last month. They know how much came in from their last launch. They might even know their ad spend or follower growth. But that's not the same thing as knowing your numbers. Because knowing your numbers means knowing what's beneath them. The patterns, relationships, and causes that tell you why things are happening and what to do next. The myth is simple. If you look at your numbers often enough, you'll stay in control. That's what most founders believe. They check their dashboards daily, study charts, and compare this week's numbers to last week's. It feels like strategy. It feels like progress. But the truth? Most of them are looking at data without depth. You can stare at numbers all day and still not know what they mean. You can see profit one month and loss the next, and have no idea why. You can obsess over impressions and engagement and still be missing the signal that truly drives your growth. The myth says, knowledge is power. The reality? Understanding is power. Because numbers alone are neutral. It's what you see inside them that determines whether you grow or plateau. The reality. The reality is that numbers only tell the truth when you know how to ask the right questions. A profit chart might show you what happened, but it doesn't explain why it happened. Revenue might look great on paper, but if you don't know your margins, your churn rate, or your true cost per client, you could be celebrating a month that quietly lost money. Numbers can make you feel successful, but success is an illusion when it isn't measurable over time. That's why the most successful business owners don't just track their numbers, they interpret them. They look at them like an ongoing conversation between their systems and their strategy, because every number has a story, and that story will always tell you what's working, what's weak, and what's quietly draining your energy. The illusion of control. Here's the irony. Business owners who look at numbers the most are often the ones who misunderstand them the most. They mistake activity for control. They mistake reporting for insight. They say things like, our sales are up this month, without asking, but did our margins follow? Or, our ad engagement is growing, without noticing that conversion dropped by 30%. It's easy to feel confident when your dashboards are full of colorful charts and graphs, but real confidence comes from knowing exactly which numbers matter most. You can't steer a plane by looking at every instrument at once. You focus on altitude, direction, and speed, because those are what keep you in the air. The same goes for business. You don't need to watch everything. You need to understand the vital few that determine your survival. The hidden cost of guessing. Every business has invisible costs, but the most dangerous one is guessing. When you make decisions based on emotion, assumption, or incomplete data, you're gambling, not leading. You might get lucky for a while, but luck doesn't scale. Here's a quiet truth from decades of business data. The companies that survive recessions, disruptions, and shifts aren't the ones with the biggest teams or loudest marketing. They're the ones with the clearest insight. Because clarity gives you time to react. It gives you the calm to decide before things spiral. When you really know your numbers, you stop reacting to fires and start predicting where the next one will be. That's the difference between running a business and owning it. The emotional trap. Now here's where things get tricky. Business owners don't misread numbers because they're unskilled. They misread them because they're emotionally attached to them. When revenue drops, it feels personal. When followers rise, it feels validating. When ads fail, it feels embarrassing. But data doesn't feel. It just tells the truth. Emotionally mature founders treat numbers like a compass, not a mirror. They don't get defensive. They get curious. They don't say, why isn't this working? They ask, what is this trying to tell me? That subtle difference in mindset transforms numbers from anxiety into advantage. The silent leak. Let me give you an example. I once coached a founder who proudly told me his revenue had grown 40% in 90 days. He was ecstatic. But when we looked deeper, his delivery costs had doubled, his refund rate had quietly climbed to 15%, and his net profit had actually shrunk. He didn't have a sales problem, he had a systems problem. But he wouldn't have known that if he hadn't learned how to interpret his data. When we restructured his KPIs around efficiency instead of vanity, he grew profit by 60% with half the stress. That's the power of clarity. The 5 numbers that tell the truth. Forget the hundreds of metrics out there. There are 5 that will always tell you the truth about your business. Customer acquisition cost. CAC. How much it truly costs you to gain one paying client. Customer lifetime value. CLV. How much that client contributes over time. Conversion rate. How effectively interest turns into income. Retention rate. How well you keep your clients coming back. Profit margin. How much you actually keep. Everything else, likes, followers, impressions, is noise. If you know these 5 numbers intimately, you'll never be blindsided by cash flow again. You'll know where to focus, where to invest, and where to stop wasting time. That's what knowing your numbers really means. The system behind simplicity. Now, let's look behind the curtain. Every business that grows consistently has one thing in common: a rhythm of measurement. Not a complicated system, just a simple habit. Once a week, they review their core metrics. They ask what changed. They decide one small adjustment. Then they execute. That rhythm compounds clarity. Because clarity is never built overnight. It's built through repetition. If you build that rhythm into your week, you'll start noticing how your business begins to talk to you. Every spike and dip starts to make sense. Every decision feels grounded. That's the difference between reacting to your business and running your business. The freedom in data. Here's what most people don't realize. Understanding your numbers doesn't trap you, it frees you. It frees you from guessing. It frees you from panic. It frees you from that constant loop of, I think this is working, to, I know exactly what's working. When your data is clear, your decisions get faster. Your confidence grows stronger, and your business feels lighter, not heavier. That's what clarity does. It doesn't just improve performance, it restores peace. Your next step. If you've been listening and thinking, I probably don't understand my numbers as deeply as I thought, you're not alone, and you're not failing. You're doing what most entrepreneurs do, building in motion, and that's okay. The good news is, you can find out exactly where your clarity gaps are. Take a few minutes to try the free business analysis using the link in the description or comments section. It'll show you which metrics actually drive your business and where your systems might be quietly working against you. It's not a pitch, it's a mirror. And once you see your reflection clearly, you can start steering forward with confidence again. Final thought. Knowing your numbers isn't about memorizing spreadsheets. It's about mastering awareness. The entrepreneurs who scale gracefully don't know more. They simply know what matters. So stop chasing data you'll never use. Start listening to the truth inside the numbers you already have. Because those numbers aren't just data points, they're your story. And if you learn to read that story with honesty and curiosity, you'll never wonder what's next. You'll already know. So the next time you tell someone, I know my numbers, you'll say it with quiet certainty. Not because you track them, but because you understood them. And that, right there, is where real business mastery begins.